We've seen so many big mistakes over the last few years. Disney buying Star Wars, MLB The Show adding sets and seasons, and also not subscribing to Fuzzy. But all jokes aside, a viewer of mine sent me an article from ESPN where they ranked the worst mistake from every single team in baseball the last 5 seasons. And man, there's been some big ones. So let's do it. The worst mistake for every team in baseball since 2020. Also, MLB The Show 25 is out. Please subscribe to Fuzzy Gaming. All right, bye. Starting off with the Baltimore Orioles, they went with the Tanner Scott trade from 2022 as their biggest mistake of the last 5 years. I don't know if I necessarily blame the Orioles for moving on. Despite the strikeouts being there, Tanner Scott had an almost 5 ERA in 5 seasons with the Orioles. Also, they had Felix Bautista coming in, so they had every reason to move on. Even Tanner's first season as a Marlin wasn't very good. He had a 4.5 ERA. But of course, hindsight is 2020. He eventually figured it out, and he's been one of the best closers, if not the best closer in baseball since 2023. Me personally, I probably would have gone with not re-signing Corbin Burnes, but that's just me. Wow, ESPN is throwing shade and taking shots at Henry Davis. Their biggest mistake talking about the Pirates was drafting Henry Davis first overall. Henry Davis has been one of the most confusing players I've ever seen. In the big leagues, he has a -2 WAR and a 62 OPS plus while hitting 191. But in 71 AAA games, he's hitting 320 with an almost 1,000 OPS. He is the definition of a 4A player. I'll give them this, but if they don't give Paul Skeens an extension by the end of 2025, that'll be their biggest mistake. What was the biggest mistake for the Giants? They went with signing Mitch Haniger on a 3-year, $43.5 million deal. This isn't even the first thing that comes to mind, not even in the top 3. Don't get me wrong, Mitch was an abject failure with a negative WAR, only 6 home runs, and a 74 OPS plus his lone season with the Giants. He went back to the Mariners the very next season. And maybe saying that not signing Aaron Judge was their biggest mistake isn't fair because Aaron took less money to go back to the Yankees. But considering a full-blown meme came out of it, Arson Judge, yeah, that's their biggest mistake. Sorry, ESPN. Oh yeah, this was bad. This was very, very bad. The Marlins gave Avisail Garcia a $53 million contract. I'm not sure if this guy was a product of Juice Baseballs, but right before he signed that contract, he popped off for 29 home runs in 2021. As a Marlin, he hit 13 total home runs, had a -1.9 WAR, and a 61 OPS plus. One of the worst contracts we've ever seen. So yes, ESPN, I 100% agree with that one. The Atlanta Braves don't make a ton of mistakes, but yes, trading William Contreras is one of them. And that's not to say that Sean Murphy is bad or anything like that, but he just can't stay healthy enough to stay consistent. And now that William knows how to frame pitches, he has 40 home runs and a 130 OPS plus since joining the Brewers. He might be the guy. A very rare L for the GM of the Braves, Alex Anthopoulos. If you bring up Freddie Freeman as the biggest mistake, I think you gotta blame his agent, not the Braves. This is as big of a mistake as you can possibly get. Jose Abreu did pop off a little bit for the Astros in the 2023 playoffs, but that was it. This is a real stat, by the way. In year 2 of a near $60 million contract, Jose Abreu hit 124 with a 4, not 40, not 14, single digit, a 4 OPS plus in 35 games, and then he was released. I know people are going to point to not bringing back Bregman or Tucker, but the fact that they literally lit $60 million on fire with Jose Abreu, I agree with that pick. Cincinnati, all right, the Mike Moustakas deal. I forgot that Mike once got almost $65 million over 4 years. I mean, considering Mike was an all-star and had 35 home runs the year before he signed with the Reds, it's easy to see why he got that much money. But wow, is he bad. He only made it 3 of the 4 years of the contract, and in those 3 seasons, he was a negative WAR guy with 21 total home runs over 184 games, so he missed a lot of time as well. That's definitely worse than Shogo Akiyama, but don't forget about that guy. He robbed the Reds. The St. Louis Cardinals. If you guys forgot, Randy Arozarena was a Cardinal. In his first 19 games as a Redbird, Randy hit 300 with an almost 400 on base. He showed some promise even with them. We all know that Randy is not going to be a Hall of Famer or anything like that, but 4 consecutive 2020 seasons and maybe the clutchest postseason hitter of all time, I'm sure they're kicking themselves over that trade because the guy that they got in return, Matthew Liberatore, has been a bust. Whoa, I did not know that the Cubs non-tendered Kyle Schwarber? Wow, I did not know that at all. Just like Ohtani, yes, Ohtani did struggle in 2020. Schwarber wet the bed, and I guess the Cubs, they said, we're going to move on. Schwarber then went to the Nationals and popped off for 25 home runs in 72 games. Then he got shipped to the Red Sox where he hit 290 with a 155 OPS plus. We all know the rest is history with the Phillies. On the other hand, they chose not to give Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, and Javier Baez extensions, so maybe that makes up for it. Another player that just got given up on by a team, so Schwarber was non-tendered, the Royals waived Brent Rooker. In all transparency, the Twins also gave up on Rooker as well as the Padres. He went from the Padres to Kansas City. But ultimately, the way that it worked out is that Rooker broke out as soon as Bobby Witt Jr. made the big league squad. So imagine Rooker and Bobby Witt in the same lineup. Brent had 39 home runs and a 165 OPS plus last season. That's mythical stuff. Wow, we're going back to 2020 when Blake Snell got pulled in the 6th inning of Game 6 of the World Series. A quick little refresher, Kevin Cash, the manager of the Rays, didn't believe that Blake Snell could go more than 5 innings, so when he was in the 6th, he was already past the point of no return. He was only at 73 pitches though, and from that point the Rays, they blew their chances at winning any World Series. Ooh, we have back-to-back mistakes that involve pulling a pitcher way too early. So the Jays, apparently, I forgot about this, in 2023, they pulled Jose Barrios in the 4th inning of the Wild Card Series. After just 47 pitches, Jose was taken out for Yusei, who completely blew the game. Guys like Whit Merrifield and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., they were taken back and said they hated that move. Don't forget about that 4-year, $80 million contract to Hyunjin Ryu. He only pitched 315 innings, but he had a sub-4 ERA, so maybe not the worst thing ever. For a second, I thought maybe the Yankees pick was going to be not giving Bryce Harper an extension, not even calling the guy. Bryce even admitted that. He didn't even get a call from the Yankees. Blame this all on Aaron Boone, bringing in Nestor Cortez in relief of Game 1 of the 2024 World Series. You guys know what happened after that. He literally had Tim Hill waiting there, but instead he brought in a guy that hadn't pitched in more than a month. Make it make sense. Jeez, I forgot about the dark days for the Mets from like 2022 to 2023 when they signed Max Scherzer and then Justin Verlander, and they both weren't great Mets. I guess that's not being totally fair. Scherzer was really good in 2022, his first season with the Mets, but then really regressed the next year. Verlander only made it 16 starts before getting shipped back to the Astros in 2023. But for a handful of starts that cost them almost $150 million, yeah, it's not good. If it's not that, it's probably going to be the Javier Baez trade where they gave away Pete Crow Armstrong, who could get MVP votes one day. What do we have for the Milwaukee Brewers trading Josh Hader away at the trade deadline? I don't know if this is really a mistake considering Devin Williams filled in nicely and they just build relief pitchers like it's nothing. I hate to say it, but it's probably got to be that contract extension for Christian Yelich. 9 years, $215 million. He's looking like the old Yelich as of late, but there was a stretch where it was bad. Now, luckily, 2024 was an all-star caliber year, but yet again, it was cut short due to injury. So a little bit of regression, a little bit of injury. I would have gone with the Yelich extension. Oh no, the Mariners, Robbie Ray specifically got a double whammy. So first of all, giving him money was a mistake, and then using him against Yordan Alvarez was a mistake. So just everything involving Robbie Ray in a Mariners uniform has been a mistake. 5 years, $115 million. I know he won a Cy Young, but what has he done with the Mariners? He had a 3.8 ERA with the Mariners. Oh, and I forgot about this. He was shipped to the Giants. I forgot. This could have been another mistake by the Giants, but because Robbie did get all that money and had that moment against Yordan Alvarez, yeah, I'm going to give ESPN the tip of the cap on this one. I'm sorry, Mariners fans, for the PTSD. This has to be one of the worst mistakes in baseball history. I cannot believe how fast Madison Bumgarner fell off. Madison went from a playoff hero, a face of the franchise in San Francisco, to being an actual bum with the Diamondbacks. Madison got almost $90 million to put up. These are real stats, just like Jose Abreu. They're hard to believe, but Madison, in 70 starts as an Arizona Diamondback, had a 5.23 ERA. And that's why at just 34 years old, Madison Bumgarner left the game of baseball. Now, luckily for Diamondbacks fans, this mistake hasn't really hurt them because they've only gotten better, and they just gave Corbin Burnes a ton of money. And let's face it, Burnes is better than Bumgarner. The Phillies, eesh. Using Craig Kimbrell with their season on the line multiple times. I'm not going to lie, looking back, I still can't believe this happened. Craig was awful in Game 3 of the NLCS. The very next day, he was brought in again to protect a 2-run lead, and then Alec Thomas did his thing for an incredibly memorable moment. With all that being said, yes, it was a mistake to do that, and the moment was really big, so you want to point to Craig Kimbrell, but what about Taijuan Walker, ESPN? Taijuan Walker? More like Taijuan walked out with millions of dollars he did not earn. He's been awful with them. I'm going to be nice to Taijuan and round down. He had a 7 ERA in 2024. He had a 7.1, so again, I'm trying to be nice, but I don't know if he deserves grace. It's one of the worst contracts of the last decade for sure. You know, I appreciate the perspective on some of these mistakes. The Twins' biggest mistake was going all in at the trade deadline in 2022. What exactly happened that year? They got Jorge Lopez, Tyler Mahle, Michael Fulmer, and Sandy Leon, and yeah, they went 11-22 and finished under 500 after that. They traded away Yennier Cano, Cade Povich, Spencer Steer, I forgot about that. And Christian Encarnacion Strand. Wow, Ian Hamilton, I forgot that he was once a Twin. Yeesh, I did not realize they gave away that much capital for that little in return. The biggest mistake for the Padres, honestly, it might be the Xander Bogaerts deal, maybe even the Joe Musgrove deal, not because he's been awful, but that injury is going to really make that contract sting. They went with a very specific moment, something that happened a few months ago, starting Dylan Cease on short rest in Game 4 of the NLDS against the Dodgers. Cease got knocked around, giving up 3 runs as the Padres lost 8-0. If they had won Game 4, they would have moved on, not the Dodgers. Speaking of the Dodgers, they're lucky this was not a worst mistake of the last 10 years because trading Yordan Alvarez for a reliever, it doesn't get much worse than that. They went with trading for Lance Lynn and starting him with the season on the line in the playoffs of 2023. But remember, in 2023, Mookie Betts wasn't great in the playoffs. Neither was Freddie Freeman. I think they went hitless, so it wasn't just Lance Lynn's fault. But hey, you know what? It lit the fire underneath the Dodgers front office, and I don't think Dodgers fans would change anything. The Chicago White Sox. I feel like we can all agree the downfall started with the hiring of Tony La Russa. A lot of people blame Tony for being way too old school in the modern day, and that was a big reason why your mean Mercedes went from being a star in the making to being out of baseball. Just kind of crazy. He went from a respected Hall of Famer to everyone making jokes about the way that he runs. Ouchtown, population, you Tigers fans. I still can't believe this man. I mean, he deserved it after all of what he did with the Cubs and then his magical run with the Mets. But $140 million for 6 years to Javier Baez seems like an absolute no-brainer as the worst mistake the Tigers have made the last 5 years. The defense has always been pretty good, but offensively it's gotten worse and worse and worse. Check this out. He had a 91 OPS plus, then a 63, then a 46 this past season. Moving on. That's their biggest mistake by far. Why did they have to bring this up? Why did they have to remind me that the Guardians, my team, traded Junior Caminero, who could be the next superstar, and he's only, what, 20, 21 years old? On top of that, adding to the pain, Tobias Myers, who they got in return, isn't even with the Guardians anymore, and he just broke out with the Brewers. But none of that, in my opinion, compares to losing Francisco Lindor in one of the worst trades we've ever seen. Andres Gimenez had a nice first season, but he regressed badly back down to the means, and Ahmed Rosario, I hated watching him play baseball. Again, I appreciate the willingness to be different from ESPN, but if it's not the Francisco Lindor trade, it's not anything. Ooh, okay, this is fun. So we go from the Guardians having a bad trade, in my opinion, to the Guardians having one of the better trades we've ever seen. I remember making this video, and I got clowned on for it years later. I basically said that the Guardians didn't get anything in return for Corey Kluber, even though Class A ceiling did look pretty high. I didn't realize that the Rangers literally gave us Guardians fans the next Mariano Rivera. We can't really say it anymore because of the playoffs. Let's move on. But in terms of regular season stats, ooh. But yeah, their last few trades, including Cole Reagans as well as Emmanuel Clase, the Rangers have been stinking it up in that department. A moment of silence for our blue-eyed prince, Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant is still very much alive and still playing baseball, but a lot of casual fans have kind of just forgotten that he even exists. $182 million to be one of the least productive and least healthy players in baseball since signing it. Yowza. He's entering his age 33 season, so maybe he can turn back the clock a little bit. I hate saying it, but I don't have a lot of faith in that. Red Sox fans, bear with me. I mean, it was inevitable, right? Boston fans are about to have a very fun 2025, and their outfield looks absolutely stacked for the future with Roman Anthony looking like he could be the truth, and also Christian Campbell could be the next Mookie Betts. But yes, trading away Mookie Betts for a couple peanut M&Ms and belly button lint is, wow. The Betts blunder is by far and away in a different universe than the Chris Sale trade, but I wanted to kind of give that as an honorable mention. Chris Sale left the Red Sox and then won a Cy Young. It breaks my heart that Steven Strasburg went from on top of the world to literally not being able to throw baseballs anymore, which then compounded the misery and pain for the Nationals because they did not ensure that 7-year $245 million contract. Steven Strasburg gets every penny of that $245 because the Nationals messed up and did not ensure it. So if you come out and say that this is the worst contract of all time, I don't think I'm going to have any arguments. Maybe Anthony Rendon is up there, but Strasburg, to me, has to be the worst. The A's biggest mistake, there's been a lot of them. A lot of people might point to John Fisher being allowed to buy the team, but that was a long time ago. They're pinpointing on the post-lockout fire sale in March of 2022. They traded away Chris Bassett, Matt Olson, and Matt Chapman. Also, a couple weeks later, they gave away Sean Manaea. And last, but certainly not least, I thought maybe they were going to go with Anthony Rendon, but keeping Shohei Ohtani at the trade deadline of 2023 is the biggest mistake the Angels have ever made. Art Moreno, I don't care enough to know how to pronounce his first name. He needs to get away from the game of baseball and sell the team. He basically said that he kept Ohtani because Ohtani sells tickets. Not that he really believed that the Angels can make a run in 2023. He simply wanted ticket sales, and that's why he lost them for a draft pick. That's all the Angels got in return for losing the greatest player of all time. And if Moreno couldn't get any stupider, not only did he not trade Ohtani to completely retool and reshape his franchise, he chose to not match the counteroffer from Ohtani. The same offer the Dodgers got is the same offer the Angels got. Moreno said, "Nah, I'm good." Just kind of crazy that this is a real sentence. The Angels had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout on the same team, and they didn't make the playoffs one time. And there you have it, the worst mistake every team has made since 2020, according to ESPN, with a little bit of changes from Fuzzy. I love referring to myself in third person. I hope that you all enjoyed. If you did, do me a favor, leave a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And again, don't forget to head over to my gaming channel, Fuzzy Gaming. We're so close to 100,000 subs.